Chapter 6, called Outside. Okay, in this chapter, Arnie is really frustrated, angry, and with some feelings about his situation with Christine and Darnell. Then he thinks about the strange Arnie's behavior because this one starts to say insulting for Darnell and their people. He tells Dennis he should look for another friend, and Dennis responds that he loves him as his friend. All of this happens in the Dennis car. The next chapter, called Bad Dreams. Come on, big guy, let's go for a ride. These words begin to become two disturbing words in Dennis' life. After to stay with Arnie, Dennis goes to his home and starts to think in atmosphere of his home, his sister, his parents, and the way of their lives. Dennis talks with his father about of the new Arnie's acquisition, Christine. He perceives uncertainty in Dennis and invites him to play a poker game. After all of this, Dennis goes to his bed and has a horrible nightmare with Christine where she pounces against him. His parents are worried about that, but it's only a nightmare. Come on, big guy, let's go for a ride. Okay, the next chapter is the chapter 8, called First Changes. Things are not going well and Dennis knows it. He starts looking for Arnie and think about his behavior the last days. Technically, since he has Christine. Arnie spends all his time in Darnell with Christine, and that makes him a little jealous. Dennis perceives a restraining on Arnie with him. He also perceives a strange change of his complexion and his face, even in his behavior once again, but in this case, deeper. The next chapter, 9, called Body Reperton, or maybe Body Reperton. Dennis goes to Arnie's house as usual, but he finds a bad surprise seeing the face of his friend beaten, but Arnie does not want to talk about it. Dennis thinks that it's a good idea go for a pizza with Arnie to what he knows. At the pizzeria, Dennis perceives that Arnie's face is advancing even more, and he asks Dennis if he knows Body Reperton. Dennis tells him everything he knows about him. He tells that Buddy is a bully. Arnie tells Denny that he fought with him because Buddy has damaged a Christine's headlight, and in other changes, Buddy had bothered to him. A person who also knew Buddy wasn't there with them. He tells Dennis that Arnie had reacted in a strange and angry way with Buddy. He tells that technically Arnie had beaten too much to Buddy. Dennis, once again, feels worried for Arnie. The next chapter is the chapter 10, called Levi Passes. Dennis goes to the cinema with a girl. They go to watch Grease. Dennis thinks that the movie is bad. He doesn't find anything special. Also, Dennis has an idea about Christine. He thinks that she can stay in the Levi's garage, then calls to Arnie for say that. Arnie answers him in a bad way. Denny is surprised about that, but after he finds out that Levi is dead. The next chapter is the chapter 11, called The Funeral. Dennis feels excluded from the Arnie's life, and he asks his boss for permission to go to Levi's funeral. After that, in the Levi's funeral, they realize that there is few people among them the brother of Levi. After the funeral, Arnie and Dennis get to talk to the brother of Levi. Arnie proposed George to let him keep Christine in the Rollins house, and George replied with a negative answer. Then George goes out and Dennis, without the knowledge of Arnie, goes after George. Right after, Dennis and George have a conversation, and George tells Dennis that if he wants to know about Christine, he should go to the motel where George is staying. Okay, the next chapter is the chapter 12, called Some Family History. Dennis goes to the motel where George is host. There George tells Dennis some things about his brother, about his daughter, about his wife, and who was he before, and he says that Roland was always someone with a very mad mood since he was a child. George also tells Dennis that Roland was part of the army. He always wanted a car. He had problems with his wife because he was a drunk. When Roland was able to buy Christine, he was not interested in anything else but the car. George also tells that the daughter of Roland passed away because of a piece of meat that she could not digest correctly. Ironically, Roland enters to a good season of his life, but his wife could never overcome his daughter's death, and her depression drove her to suicide in the Roland's car, Christine, as her daughter did. After all this, Dennis confirms his doubts about Christine and starts to believe that she is cursed. The next chapter is the chapter 13, called Later That Evening. After Dennis arrives to his house, Dennis and Arnie talk via phone, and Arnie tells Dennis that Buddy was excluded of Darnell's. In addition, Darnell makes a job proposal to Arnie. Dennis is not agree with that, and he asks him to take care. Then, after the conversation with Arnie, Dennis gets to talk with his father, and he tells him he worked and knows Darnell and he's not trustworthy, and asks him to do not let Arnie alone. The next chapter is the chapter 14, called Christine and Darnell. Due to Arnie's strange attitude with everyone, the Arnie's parents decide to travel with him, but he accepts in a bad way. Last night, the father of Arnie talks with Dennis about Christine, and he asks him to check her during the absence of Arnie. One more time, Dennis realizes that Arnie's pimple have had an improvement since last time. A couple days after Arnie and his family leave for the travel, Dennis goes to check Christine, and he realizes that Christine has a lot of progress because of Arnie's work. However, there are some things that are not normal. In that moment, Dennis was caught by Darnell and is asked to leave in a bad way. However, they talk for a few minutes, and Darnell tells Dennis that Arnie is a good boy and that Roland was there with Christine a long time ago. The final chapter is the chapter 15, called Football Woods. Dennis is practicing hard for his basketball match. After the training, he goes home and falls asleep. He starts dreaming about him playing basketball and he was losing the game, was knocked out, and when he tries to get up, he sees Christine with Arnie on the top of the car saying, "Don't worry, we'll take care of everything." That's all.